Welcome everybody. Welcome to those attending and also the viewers watching live on the Council YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. Details of business to be considered today is shown on the agenda, copies of which are available in the room, and it's also accessible online underneath the live broadcast. For those present in the room and attending to speak, please note that you're being filmed, and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. For those solely observing in the room today, you may wish to know that the camera is angled away from you in the public gallery where you are sitting. At the end of the public part of the meeting, the committee moved to discuss any confidential matters that the live course on YouTube will be cut. Today there is no such papers. As a reminder to everybody speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. If there is a fire alarm, we're not expecting one tonight, so there's a fire drill. If it goes off, please follow officers to the fire exits and the building to designated points. I won't be a flight attendant. So, no. Anyway, those with mobile devices and tablets, for those in the room, please make sure they're switched off or they're on silent before the meeting starts. Please note that councillors on the committee may use their laptops or tablets during the meeting to view the agenda or paperwork. Resident feedback forms, if you're so minded, can we please complete one of them of the yellow resident feedback forms, which are here. The information in these forms is intended to help us improve the way that we run our meetings. Forms can be completed and left in this room for collection after the meeting, or completed and returned by post to the address on the form. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can also complete a form online, and there is a link below the broadcast. I've always been tempted to do that, but we won't. Anyway, any declarations of interest, please ensure that you identify which items you have any interest in, state whether your interest is pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and give the reasons that they have an interest. Members need not declare any interest in any item on the agenda where they have already listed this interest on the register of interests. Furthermore, you do not need to declare any interest because you are, for example, a ward councillor. Thank you for those watching, and we will get on with the agenda. First, I'd like to do a roll call for councillors first. Can we have Councillor Morgan?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm present.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sharia Walala.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I am present.
Councillor Nicola Brightman.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm present.
Councillor Kaufman.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'm present.
Councillor Morse.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
And Councillor Birara.
Good evening, Chairman and everybody. I'm present.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to attempt to do officers. Usually I have it written down, but I haven't got it today. So I'm going to say my head of planning is James Rogers, to my left.
I'm present, Chairman.
My lead officer is Mr. Harani.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm present.
My transport is Mr. Tilley.
Good evening, Chairman. I'm present.
And my lawyer is Mrs. Munro.
Good evening, Chairman. I am present.
Thank you. And obviously, the person that I can't do any of this out without is Neil, and you're present.
I am present.
Okay, fine. So, what we're going to do is, before I start, I'm going to read something else out, so you'll have to forgive me. We have changed our committees, and so I'm just going to sort of give you a rough flavour of why we've changed it and go from there. Tonight this is a minor application planning committee. I am firstly going to say a few words about the recent changes to the Council's planning committee. The Council's planning committee play a crucial role in providing democratic and transparent decisions on sometimes controversial issues. But because of the significant resource involved in each meeting, it's important that we focus on applications of most interest to our residents. At the Council AGM on the 20th of May, various changes were made to the committee structure. Central, South and North planning committees have been replaced by minor the Minor Planning Application Committee. The HS2 and Major Application Planning Committee are now the Major Application Planning Committee, which meets this Thursday. There have also been some changes to memberships of the committee and some minor changes to the officer scheme of delegation. Such a change to the schemes of delegation so it would better match legislative changes to the classes order. In plain English, which would help me actually to get tongue-tied, this means dedicated to officers uncontrollable changes of use of application to ensure those changes of use which we know are always contentious come to the planning committee. Full details of changes can be found on the council website on the Democratic Service webpage through viewing the 20th May AGM. I will run through the agenda of tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Henry Higgins and I'm the Chairman of the committee. First of all, we'll have apologies for absence.
All members are present, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? No. To sign and receive the minutes of the previous meetings, they agreed? Okay, thank you. Matters that have not been notified in advance or urgent?
None, Chairman.
And to confirm that all items business marked Part 1 will be considered in public and items marked in Part 2 will be considered in private. And obviously, as I stated before, we haven't got any of those. So we start, shall we? And shall I hand over to you? Do we have to? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So, yeah, just members, item 6 relates to the report for the speaking rights following the pandemic. So I have just a very brief script that I'm just going to read through. So council meetings are now required by law to be held in person and not virtually. Therefore, for planning committees, this means that physical speaking rights now resume automatically. This report asks the committee to continue with the ability for those with valid speaking rights at planning committees, e.g. lead petitioners, applicants and ward councillors, to submit written representations instead of attending in person to speak if they wish to do so. For people to have the ability to attend and speak or submit a written representation, it ensures no one is disenfranchised from putting across their views to councillors as the UK comes out of a national lockdown and social distancing restrictions start to be lifted. The recommendation, as set out in the report, will need to be proposed and seconded before voting on, please.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, so then I'll hand over to...
It's a question of, we need a proposer and
seconder. Who would have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Morgan, seconder. Councillor Brightman. Agreed? Great. Okay. Item 7.
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to 119 Charville Lane in Hayes, which is a detached bungalow. And before I begin the presentation, there are a couple of things of housekeeping. In the addendum, members will see that we've received an appeal against the non-determination of this application within the statutory time period. So the recommendation has been amended to say that we would have refused the application and therefore we can continue and fight the appeal. The second thing is that at the top of page 10 there is a sentence which says there are no tree preservation orders on the site. That is incorrect. There is a tree preservation order which covers the site and the details of that are set out in the Council's Tree and Landscape Officer's comments on page 11. There is a tree on the site which is protected, but it is not affected by the development. With that, this is an application for substantial extensions to this detached bungalow. In terms of the extensions, there are single-storey side and rear extensions. There's a proposed first floor above the existing, and then on top of that, there's the conversion of the roof to provide further accommodation with the addition of dormers and roof lights. As I said before, it is substantial. The site is in the green belt, and members will know that there are restrictions on development in the Greenbelt, and Section 5, the main planning issues, sets out what may be acceptable, and it does include extensions of existing residential buildings within the Greenbelt, but they have to be in proportion and not have an impact on the openness of the Greenbelt. In your officer's view, the extensions that are proposed are substantially above what would normally be acceptable. There isn't a limit, as it were, set out in any documents which sets out the exact size that can be acceptable, but through appeal decisions and through case law, generally it has been accepted that 50% of the existing floor space is acceptable as extensions to residential properties. In this particular case, the existing dwelling is 91 square metres and the proposed dwelling would be 253 square metres, so it would be approximately 180% increase over and above the existing dwelling, so which greatly exceeds the 50%. And even if officers were to say that slightly more was acceptable, I don't think that we would be accepting 178%. So for that reason, we are recommending refusal because of its impact on the Greenbelt. There are changes to the frontage in terms of putting a wall and railings on the frontage, and your officers consider that those changes are also out of character with the area and have an impact on the appearance of the Greenbelt. So two reasons for refusal, if I can just go through the presentation. That's the site, and as members can see, the site is in the Greenbelt. That's the existing ground floor and the first floor. There is accommodation in the roof in the first floor with one dormer, and that's the site and roof plan, the existing elevations, and then the proposed. So if I can just use my, as you can see, substantial extensions to the side and rear, and then a floor above, and then a further floor above that. So these are the elevations. And then the changes to the frontage. So that's the access road to the side of the property. This is the existing property at the rear and the garden area, and then the front. The tree to the left of the photo is a protected tree. So your officers consider that this is unacceptable for the reasons set out. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. This is a petition item. The petitioner, Mr. Aaron Partus, couldn't attend. He was going to send a statement in. Did he manage to do that now?
No statement's been received, Chairman.
Okay, fine. So we go to the agent present, Mr. Kamani. No. Well, that's an easy one for us tonight. That's good.
Chairman, can you ask that everyone speaks up? The sound reproduction in here is not good.
Fine. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor. So that there's no objections and there's no petitioner, so we will go straight to committee. Is that okay? Who wants to say again? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's quite clear, looking at the plans and the pictures that have been displayed, that this is an overdevelopment on greenbelt land. It's a bungalow. Bungalow is a single story. Yes, they've gone and created a loft room, whatever you want to call it, but this is going to be 3 stories high. I'm totally in favour of the officers' recommendations, and I propose we go with them. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Morse.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in totally agreement with the officer's view that the height and bulk completely damages the openness of the green belt on this location. And my view is I will propose officer's recommendations. Did you propose, or shall I second? Then I will second, Mr. Chairman, officer's recommendation.
Okay, I have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour of officer's recommendation, please indicate. Unanimous. Thank you very much. So that one is with officer's recommendation. We will now move on to item 8, Cook's Garage, Forge Lane.
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to Cook's Garage, Forge Lane, which is a area of land located to the rear of St Matthew's Church, and it comprises of currently of single-storey garages. The application before you is for the development of the site, removal of the garages, and the development of the site to provide 6 flats in total. If I can point members to the planning history section on page 24, members will see that since 2006, and this is recent history, so there is history before that, but since 2006 there have been a substantial number of applications for the development of the site for residential, and each of those applications has been refused. There have been 4 appeals against refusals, and each of those appeals has been dismissed. And in some form or other, the applications either related to a 2-storey building or a 3-storey building, or a combination of the two. And in this particular case, we have a Part 3, Part single-storey building, and your officers, again, are of the view that this is unacceptable. There are a number of reasons for this, and the first one is that the site is in a area of special local character, and the design and size and bulk of it is not considered to be in keeping with the area special local character, and detailed comments are set out in the Conservation Officer's comments on pages 29 and 30 for that. Second is the impact that the building would have on the surrounding properties, particularly residential properties located facing the site and in St Matthew's Court, and that is been a consistent theme through the number of applications that we've received, and a consistent reason for refusal. It is difficult, given the proximity of the site to these residential properties, to have a building above a single storey or of any size, which would not impact on these properties, and therefore that is a reason for refusal as well. There are a number of other reasons for refusal: the lack of amenity space, and the quality of the 2-bedroom flat that's provided, and also the fact that it doesn't comply with the accessibility policies set out in the London Plan, and also the Council's own adopted local plan. So for 5 reasons, this is recommended for refusal. If I can just go through the plans. This shows the fact that the site is in the area of special local character. That's the block plan and the existing site plan and the existing floor plans. The proposed elevations, existing and proposed, and the existing and proposed rear elevations. If I can just point out the proximity of the block, three-storey block, to the particularly to the residential properties to the rear of St Matthew's Church, and the distances there involved being less than 6 metres. I think the photographs will show that. This is the access into Forge Lane, that's St Matthew's Court at the back. The existing garages. And then that's St Matthew's Court. And then that's the proximity of St Matthew's Court to the garages, and then the proximity of the three-storey building is it's slightly set back from the last white garage that you see there, but the windows that you see in the existing buildings to the right of the photo are the residential windows, and there are some on the ground floor as well. So it does have a considerable impact on those residential properties. So for those reasons, we are recommending refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have the petitioner, Mr Mahoney?
I'm present, Chairman.
Thank you. Would you like to go ahead? I think Neil will go through what you're allowed and not to do.
No, I'm not doing that. It's just I need to swap the presentation on behalf of the petitioner. It was forwarded to all members previously, but for the benefit of the meeting, I'm just going to show it here. And Mr Mahoney, I'll do my best to, well, Meg will have to do his best to click through, matching what you're saying. Okay. Just give me a second here. I need to start the video. There is a short video as well. Okay. And now you have 5 minutes, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The slide which you're looking at is, in fact, the second slide. So if I could ask for pause just for a moment, and the slides which go before that are relevant. Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to address this evening and to put our case as petitioners against this planning application. The petitioners who have co-signed this petition are parishioners of St Matthew's Roman Catholic Parish. I'm Father Brian Omani, I'm the parish priest there, and our community is approximately 500 worshippers. The church is open every day and public worship takes place every day of the year with the congregation. The St Matthew's site comprises the church, the parish office and the clergy house together in one building, and our parish hall, which is separated from the church by Forge Lane. This is a narrow, unadopted road, which is an L-shaped cul-de-sac. It has a width of approximately 16 feet at 5 metres at its widest, over which there is a historic right-of-way of a width of only approximately 8 to 10 feet. And the site in question for planning sits at the bottom of the L shape, and the approach to the bend from Hallowell Road has been measured, as you see in the image there to your left, at only 350 centimetres at its narrowest. This is the only vehicular access to the site. The proposed development site is adjacent to St Matthew's Court and behind the church buildings, and our objections to this development fall therefore under 2 headings: a loss of amenity and difficulties of site access. So in the first case, for loss of amenity, it is our contention that this development comprises a loss of amenity to St Matthew's and its community through, in the first place, undue proximity, the second, overlooking and overshadowing, and thirdly, loss of amenity during the construction phase of this project. To take undue proximity first, as noted by the planning officer already, the site for the development is approximately 6 metres from my residential dwelling and office. Both are permanently occupied. We submit this is unreasonable. The proposed development overshadows and overdominates the site. As a combination of 1 and 3 stories in height, we do acknowledge the design has attempted to position the highest side away from my residential dwelling, but the entire edifice would still be 1 story higher than the St Matthew's buildings. And if I can go back to the slideshow, image 1 and 2 in the slide previously. Image 1 and 2 are taken from the bedroom and the living room respectively and demonstrate the approximate intrusion. And I've marked in red roughly where the construction would be taken from the image from the bedroom. Our biggest cause of concern in this, however, would be the proposal of a roof terrace, which would be at eye level of living quarters, roughly indicated in image 3. Our third point in this, the loss of amenity during construction, would be amply magnified based on these 2 considerations. Our second major objection is to do with site access. As seen in the video which was playing at the start of this presentation, Forge Lane is only 6 metres wide at its widest point, and the approach to the site from Hallowell Road is restricted to 3.5 metres by permanent structures which provide disabled ramp access to the church, office and church hall. This measured distance is marked on the image as shown in this slide to follow. Access to the site for construction requires a sharp right-hand turn for vehicles, and the short video which I have prepared demonstrates the difficulty of access for commercial vehicles. It's our contention that no vehicle bigger than the one shown, this is a short wheelbase truck for only, would not be able to get in or out of the site, and without access over St Matthew's car park for turning. Such access for commercial or construction vehicles would only be possible with our consent, and without permitted access to St Matthew's land, no construction vehicles could practically access the site in question. It's our contention that having no right-of-way access for such vehicles makes this site an inappropriate one for this form of development. It has been noted in the planning report that we made other considerations and concerns of our community, and these were described as not materially relevant to decisions for planning. However, they are still causes of concern for St Matthew's and its community. Thank you for your consideration this evening and for considering this objection.
Thank you, Father. I have a statement from Mr. Joe Henry, who is the agent. Neil, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, this is a statement received on behalf of the applicant from the agent, so I'm just going to read that on their behalf. Thank you, Chairman and members. My name is Joe Henry, and I am the agent acting for the applicant. I would first like to apologise for not being able to attend the meeting this evening, so I'm grateful this speech is being read out. The conclusion of your officer's report states the proposal is considered to be unacceptable because of its size, scale and design would 1. Cause harm to the character and appearance of the area, and 2. Cause harm to the amenity of adjoining occupiers, and also would provide inadequate accommodation for future occupiers. In respect of the size, scale and design of the development, I would comment that your officers have stated there will be no objection to the loss of the existing garage structures. However, your officers have crucially given no weight to the fact that the current garage structures contribute negatively to the character and appearance of the area. This is an important material consideration which your officers have failed to give any weight to. I would respectfully ask members to ask themselves the following common sense question. Does the proposal represent an improvement to the character and appearance of the area when compared to the existing situation? If members' answer to the question is yes, then the proposal should be considered acceptable on its planning merits in respect of its impact on the character and appearance of the locality. In respect of impact on neighbouring amenities, your officers consider the proposal is likely to lead to overlooking and loss of privacy to windows along the first and second floors of number 1 to number 6 St Matthew's Court. Crucially, your officers use the words likely and maybe, but your officers don't actually say they are of the opinion the proposal would lead to harmful overlooking. It is not for planners to hedge their bets, and instead they should give clear guidance to members. Unlike other London boroughs, Hillingdon do not have any overlooking standards. The London plan refers to privacy distances of 18 to 21 metres between facing windows of habitable rooms, but advises to not have a rigid consideration, otherwise high-density sustainable development may not be possible. In this case, only 3 windows face St Mary's Court, with the 2 nearest being over 20 metres away. Therefore, the proposed window could not be reasonably considered to result in harmful overlooking. The proposal does include amenity space provision, which is close to the St Mary's Court, but this amenity space provision is at a first floor level and is surrounded by a 1.7 metre high obscured glazed screen. In respect of the quality of flats proposed, your officers are of the opinion that flat 2 would have a poor outlook. The issue raised is not understood because if you look to the proposed plans for flat 2, any reasonable person is likely to conclude that the outlook for this property is very good. Your officers' report also criticised the provision of communal amenity space and states the provision of communal amenity space is not generally supported by the Council's policies. This is not correct. The preamble to the policy, paragraph 5.72, refers to private amenity space, quote, whether individual or communal. Your officers' report does, though, advise that the non-provision of balconies could be supported if there are planning reasons to do so. Your planning officer's criticism of the size and design of the proposal demonstrate that your planners would certainly not support more visual clutter provided by balconies, and as such, this is a planning reason not to provide balconies. Overall, I hope members come to their own conclusion on the planning merits of the proposal and challenge the unreasonable judgments made by their officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. That's that done. There's no comments from ward councillors on this. I will go straight to the floor. Councillor Kaufman, you indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just been looking down the amount of appeals and refusals since 2006, and that really must say something about this site. We've got a very robust report here, and I'm very happy to go along with officers' recommendation.
Councillor Brightman.
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Okay, I go straight to the vote. All those in favour of officers' recommendation for refusal, please indicate. Unanimous. So that item is refused. We move on to item 9, which is 288 West End Road, Ruislip. Is the petitioners here for that? Please indicate. No? Okay.
We'll have you make a entry first.
Yeah. Okay, fine. If you'd like to take it away, Mr. Narani.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for 288 West End Road. It's for the change of use of the ground floor of the premises from a retail use to a hot food takeaway. Members will know that there have been recent changes to the use classes order, which has combined a lot of the old commercial uses, which were within classes A and B and C, or AB, and included them all within Class E. The only exception to that is hot food takeaway, which is now classed as a sui generis use, which is a class on its own. And this application is for the change of use to a hot food takeaway, and the consideration is whether it is acceptable in principle. The Council has adopted policies DMTC3 and DMTC4 relating to the changes of use to restaurants and hot food takeaways, and in particular DMTC4 says that hot food takeaways will only be supported where they would not result in adverse cumulative impacts due to an unacceptable concentration of such uses in one area. Your officers have carried out a survey of the premises in and around this particular site, and that results of that survey are set out on pages 47 and 48 of the agenda. Your members will note that there are at the moment 5 takeaways within close proximity of this site, and a number of other restaurant stroke takeaways as well, totaling in all 9 units. which would equate to approximately 36% of the whole parade. And your officers consider that together with the new London Plan Policy E9, which restricts the provision of hot food takeaways within 400 metres of a school premises, and this site is within 120 metres of Ruislip High School, that the principle of takeaway use in this location is unacceptable. The second issue is the flue to the rear of the premises. This does finish just so that it can be visible to the residential properties on the first and second floors of these premises, these and adjoining premises, and does present a visual impact on these sites. So that is a reason for refusal as well. However, we would state that that may well be overcome with other design issues, but the issue of the principle of development is one that may be difficult to overcome. If I can just go through the plans. The location of the flue and the existing and proposed floor plans. And the site and the back of the site. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I'll ask again, is the applicant or petitioner in?
Petitioner first.
Petitioner, yeah.
So, just confirming, is that petitioner, Mr. Bilal?
Hi, hello. This is applicant, and I'm talking on behalf of him.
Right. Okay, so there's no petitioner here then?
No, didn't.
Okay, can you, your name, sir?
My name is Senthuran.
He's not here, but you must assume that.
You, sir, are?
Mr. Ravi.
Okay, fine. Yes, if you'd like to, when you're ready, Neil.
Right. This particular premises, which is emptied for a quite substantial amount of time, and this gentleman have a shop right front of that that Let's Party shop, and he's a local guy for the last 10 years or 15 years. He lived there, and he lived above the shop as well. And this gentleman tried to he bought that premises and turned into something, and there next door is a kebab shop. So there is a school closer to that 400 yards, I know that, but unfortunately the applicant made on 11th of February 2021, and the application validated on 23rd of February 2021, but the council adopted London Plan 2021 in March. Therefore, applicant made before that particular date. Therefore, flue can be resolved, it can be planned, but the application rejected based on that London Plan 21, which is close proximity of the school, which is 400 meters, which is, we know, this gentleman running a convenience store, he know the local people as well as the school, and he know the children, and nowadays, London Plan doesn't make any sense, because you can order one takeaway order on your phone and you will get in the school. So even though I accept there is a plan in place, but the application made before March 2021, it has been validated 23rd of February. Therefore, based on that information, the council should accept this application.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have some sympathy with you, the London Plan, totally agree with that, but you want to come in, James? Sorry, does anybody have any questions? Does any councillors have any questions? I just have one question actually. What will you be selling on this site?
This particular place or wherever he
got
this
a particular place.
This particular place used to be a party shop. He want to have a hot takeaway.
What type of takeaway?
A peri-peri chicken.
Okay, fine. Thank you. That's quite healthy. Okay, fine. James.
Yeah. So the starting position with this application is that, as with all planning applications, we need to determine in accordance with the development plan unless material planning considerations indicate otherwise. So the simple fact is that the London plan was adopted on the 3rd of March. Yes, this application was lodged during February, but it was never going to be determined before the 3rd of March because you've got public consultation, etc. So we are here now. It's past the 3rd of March. The plan's adopted. So we have to give due weight to policy E9. So the question is, are there any material planning considerations that indicate we should deviate from the development plan? So if we hypothetically had a parade with lots and lots of vacant units, that could be a material planning consideration. If there was some kind of complete shortage of takeaways, then I guess that could be a material planning consideration. But unfortunately here, the simple facts are you've got 25 units, 5 are already takeaways, and we have 1 vacant unit. So it's a thriving parade that has a number of takeaways. So those facts in themselves don't... in effect, I cannot think of any material planning considerations that could be used in this case to outweigh the development plan policy. And the development plan policy is applicable at the time we determine the application. So the plan's adopted and it's contrary to the plan. So we may all be sympathetic to the applicant, but unfortunately this proposal is contrary to development plan policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. I mean, this 400 is a bit, I think, personally, I would find a bit thing. We've got some East London food here, which is from pie and mash, and we've got kebabs and peri-peri chicken, but the flu is the main issue, I think, here. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I actually do feel some sympathy towards the applicant in this case. However, we are looking at his plans using today's rules and regulations, and unfortunately it does fall a little bit short. I think Meg mentioned that 36% of the area is fast food and takeaway, which is quite a high number. So yeah, we've got 2 very strong reasons why this should be refused, but from the officers. So I'd like to.
Yeah, so it's 5 out of 25 that are currently takeaways, so that's 20%, and then this would be a 6th unit.
Sorry then, if I thought...
Yeah, sorry, what Meg was saying is that 36% are non-A1 use.
What I was saying, I think, is that there is a sort of takeaways, which is 5, and then there are 4 which are restaurant stroke takeaways as well. So you've got 9 which are providing takeaway services as well as 4 that provide restaurant services.
Okay. Sorry, we're slightly at cross purposes. Apologies for interrupting.
But does that make it a bit more clear?
Thank you, yes. But we've got 2 very strong reasons why this should be refused, so I propose that we go with officers' recommendations. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mamali. Yes?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second this one.
Thank you very much. So I have proposed and seconded. And those in favour of the officer's recommendation for refusal, please indicate. That's all of them. That's unanimous. So that is refused. Thank you very much. I do apologise for that. We'll go now to item 10. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. This application relates to 170 Harefield Road, and it is an application for the development of the site for a 3-bed detached bungalow with rooms in the roof space. The site is backland development. and it is located to the rear of 170. The site currently forms part of the rear garden of number 170, and therefore the considerations include the principle of the development and whether it's acceptable as backland development, as well as the impact on adjoining occupiers. In terms of the principle of the development, if I can refer members to page 71 and 72 in particular, members will see that the council has a policy, DMH6, which in essence states that there is a presumption against the loss of gardens subject to a number of criteria. And therefore, in general, backland development would not be acceptable. However, in this particular case, your officers have considered the other important factors around here, and that is that there have been a number of backland development, or a number of sites with backland development within the area, and currently under construction at 15, 16 and 17 North Common Road is another backland site. The matter of backland was considered at another appeal relating to 13 North Common Road, and the applicant, or the inspector, quite clearly stated that backland development was part of the character of the area, and that it would not be at odds with the surrounding area. And therefore, given these considerations, your officers consider that in this particular site, the issue of the principle of the development is acceptable. The issue in relation to the impact on adjoining occupiers, the proposal complies fully with the distances required from adjoining habitable room windows. Given its height, your officers consider that it would not have an impact in terms of loss of light or loss of outlook, again because of the distances from adjoining residential properties. We did consult with the London Fire Brigade, and they raised no objections to the application in terms of its access and emergency vehicle or emergency service vehicles being able to service the site. Given all these factors, your officers consider that it would be very difficult to refuse this application on the basis of its principle, and therefore have recommended that the application is approved. If I can just go through the plans. That is the site. It does border onto an area of special local character, but is not part of it, and it is in a parking management area. Oh, sorry. That is a full site. Sorry, these are plans produced by the council, so this is the plan submitted with the application showing the full extent of the site. And these are the floor plans and elevations. And this shows the distances between the existing dwelling and the proposed development. And the existing property and the rear garden. That is the access into the site. just looking back from the site to the properties, then looking at the site itself. Okay. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Miss Ryan and is it Mr. Bet?
No, Mrs. Ryan and her representative.
Oh, you're the representative. Okay, fine. I'm led to believe that you are wishing to split the time. Is that correct? Okay. Do you want us to do that for you, or are you quite happy to?
No, I can't do that. So.
I'll give you a wave when it's gone up halfway. If that's all right, then you can think. If you'd like to proceed, that'd be very kind. Thank you.
170 Harefield Road now has one occupant and one car. The house and the land are being sold to a developer. 170 and us at 170A is already a subdivided plot. It doesn't seem reasonable to subdivide a subdivided plot, making now 3 plots in a subdivided plot. An access road was built for 2, not 3 houses, and now this is going to be 3 houses. According to my transfer documents, I share responsibility with 168 and 170 in repairing and keeping the driveway maintained. The council report mentions the road used is a private road, when in fact this is an access road for access to 168, 170 and 170A. Given 168, 170A are expected to maintain, according to these plans, maintain and upkeep the driveway, do we not then have a say in the usage of that driveway and a 4th party, which is the new building? Who will pay for damage done during the build? And is it reasonable for all parties to have to pay for any damage done to that driveway? Also, there is a manhole at the access site where they'll be building, and the drain is shared by us, 170A, and it's immediately next to the area to be developed, and pipes run through and across the land to be developed. A survey has not, as far as we know, been done or addressed for this issue. 170A is a single route access road from a private driveway. We are the private driveway. We come down our private driveway and hit a blind bend onto the access road. A new 3-bedroom home with several occupants presents a safety issue. There is no turnaround space. Who will take responsibility for safety assessments, accidents? No safety as yet, according to any hazard that may happen, no safety has been looked at. The report mentions the new build won't result in significant increase of traffic. We don't know what evidence that is based on. With one occupant at 170 gone, this is a 4-bedroomed house with potential for a large family, 3 cars, then 2 cars for the new 3-bed. I'll continue. And then us, a 5-bedroom bungalow at the top. So you've got 4-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 5-bedroom with all the vehicles on that land, which has not been mentioned in the report. The garden space mentioned, accumulated by North Common Road, has 3 properties on there. So we now are subject to land grabbing on all sides of us. So this is another land grabbing. So what the report is saying is that this one property in the middle of all the other properties is more important than 3 neighbours, 20 petitioners, and that now this one property has more rights than all 3 of us and all the petitioners. The term fostering good relationships was mentioned. Is it fair to bring in a 4th build into a scenario where 3 surrounding neighbours and petitioning residents are objecting? The need for more homes is understandable in Hillingdon, but not on this particular site. We would like our voices to be heard and actually more rigorous consultation being taken. We think it's going to be a negative imprint now and in the future of all the surrounding properties. We feel that this report, when it was read, has not come within the boundaries of due diligence and reads like a report on behalf of the developer. As such, at this moment, we feel we need to go
Right, can I just turn your microphone off? So I just want to quickly point to the proposed site proposal on the application. Now it shows a diagram above the properties, and the boundary fence between 172 and 170 on the main buildings is 11.9 metres long. I measured it yesterday by hand, and you're welcome to come and have a look. So the face-to-face positioning will be around 15 metres if you add in the 2.4 metres specified on the drawings. This is well under the local development management section 5.38 saying there should be a 21 metre rule. At 6.3 metres high, this is also very high. It will be in the boundaries of my ceiling of my roof. It specifies that the building will be no higher than 1.5 metres below my property, which is around 9 metres. This means I'm now looking at a two-storey building which is going to completely block my right of light. So we will be seeking legal redress if this is proposed, because it will impact my right of light into my living quarters and my bedrooms.
Sorry, I'm just going to have to stop you there. You're 5 minutes right. Does any councillors wish to have any questions to the petition? No? Okay. We have... Is it Jim Beek?
Beek, yeah.
Beek. Sorry, beg your pardon. You have your 5 minutes.
Sure, okay. Could you, if you could put up the one diagram, that's the only one I need, really. This application proposes to erect a modest bungalow dwelling to the rear of the existing semi-detached number 170 Harefield Road. This represents a form of development with ample precedent both in the general locale as well as the immediate context of the proposal. The largely ad hoc development of Harefield Road as well as North Common Road has resulted in an established pattern of subdivision of larger plots, creating new residential cul-de-sac developments as well as insertion of new individual dwellings beside and behind older ones. The plots of numbers 170 to 72 Harefield Road themselves have been historically subdivided with the erection of bungalows to the rear of both properties, 170A and 172A, accessed by roadways shared with the original dwellings. Local precedents for the proposed new bungalow have been exhaustively outlined in presentations to the Planning Department forming part of this application, but those most recently decided include in 2019 a new two-storey dwelling at number 12A North Common Road, similarly accessed off a shared roadway, and 2016, 3 new two-storey dwellings accessed by a new driveway to land to the rear of 15, 16, and 17 North Common Road and adjoining to number 170A Harefield Road and just southeast of the current proposal. The diagram you're looking at is aerial photographs. The red site obviously is the applicant site. The blue outlines represent historical subdivisions and backland developments. In contrast to some of these consented developments, this new proposal would utilize an existing shared access road used by numbers 170 and 70A. The new dwelling would occupy a rear portion of the oversized garden to number 170 and would replace an existing garage and parking space serving that dwelling. As such, no new vehicle movements would be established for the new bungalow. Unlike many recent similar developments, there is no need to demolish any existing property or to build any new access road. The proposal would ameliorate the existing situation by widening the roadway from 2.8 to 3.8 meters along the side elevation and rear garden of the existing house and provide additional passing spaces both in front of and behind that plot. Hillingdon's highways officer has considered the proposal in detail on 2 occasions and has concluded that, and I quote, the proposal would not present a risk to road safety, hinder the free flow of traffic, or lead to parking stress. Some misleading statements have been made and objections raised to the proposal. The new bungalow is modest in scale, and the level of the site would be reduced to minimize the impact on neighboring properties. The new building would be sufficiently distant from and low enough to ensure that there would be minimal impact on the light reaching those dwellings and their gardens. The eaves and ridge heights of the proposal are significantly lower than all neighbors, even the existing bungalow at number 170A. Windows in the dwelling would be set at angles to neighbors, and separation distances meet or exceed the council's requirements. The siting, orientation, and design of the bungalow has been carefully considered to eliminate overlooking of neighboring properties. The applicant has also agreed to obscure glazing at first floor level to all windows and roof lights required and requested by Hillingdon planners. Objectors claim that mature trees and planting on the site will be lost, but there are in reality only minor trees and shrubs and almost no planting along the longest shared boundaries. As part of the proposal, new planting is proposed to enhance these boundaries. Throughout the extended consideration of this application, the applicant has made strenuous efforts to respond to and resolve all reasonable objections to the scheme. This follows submission of what represents a modest and carefully considered design scheme which responds to the particular circumstances of the site and adjoining properties and meets demonstrated local need for housing. The applicant is a builder and developer who will carry out the construction works directly, utilizing their extensive experience working on similar projects to minimize disruption and nuisance to neighbors. And just a couple points, if I can add. There's a statement this evening that the roadway is about maintenance of the roadway. The developers will resurface this road, as would be in their own interests at the conclusion of the building works. And a claim that the road is currently maintained by numbers 170, 178, and 168 doesn't seem to make sense to this side of the panel, since there is no access from 168 to that road. Pardon? Well, okay, my client confirms that the road is owned by number 170.
That's your time. Thank you. Sorry, we can't have a debate through, okay? I'm going to just let the ward councillor first, and I'll let you come in. Councillor Graham, would you like to have your time?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I'm Councillor Raymond Graham, Councillor for Uxbridge North Ward. Harefield Road is in that ward, and I'm here to show support for the petitioners and other concerned local residents. Inevitably, I will be touching on some of the points that have already been mentioned, but I will start by saying that despite the case officer's reasons behind the approval decision and the criteria mentioned, I'm of the firm opinion that there are some sound reasons for this application to be refused. And having visited the site and taking account of the amendment of the lowering of by 1 metre of the ground floor footprint of the proposed bungalow, I feel it would amount nonetheless to an overdevelopment and excess density of this backland area, which would not sit well in its relationship with some adjoining properties, particularly number 170 Harefield Road. Also, as has been stated by the lead petitioner, Ms Ryan, if this development is allowed to proceed, it will undoubtedly have an undesirable impact, especially on number 170A, Harefield Road, which sits immediately behind it, not only from a visual amenity and encroachment perspective, even despite, as stated, the proposed lowering of the planned property footprint overall by approximately 1 metre. Furthermore, one has to consider that the distance of some 16 metres between aspects of the proposed new unit and other nearby properties is a breach of the accepted 21 metres distance policy. I have to say that I was informed of that. I can't recall reading it, but that's something to be taken into account. Also, notwithstanding the comments in the report, the proposed driveway and parking issues are most likely to present problems, as already highlighted by the lead petitioner, especially in view of the shared ownership. Therefore, ideally, I would like to see this application refused by the committee. Alternatively, that a decision be deferred by the committee for a site visit to take place due to the overall complications connected and presented by this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Yes,
Councillor Graham, a question, yeah?
You are.
Right, thank you. I would like to ask your views on fire access to this location, because when I looked at it, I had some concerns. I note London Fire Brigade report, no objection raised. But when I looked at this, you've got a non-maintained road, a rather heavy vehicle has to go down there, and to get to number 178, which I think I agree with you on, is the one that's got the biggest problem here, is what's your views on access for the fire brigade?
Well, I find it most strange that they think that they've got ease of access, because I can't see how that could possibly be the case.
Thank you. Is that an answer good enough for you, Councillor Moore? Yes? Councillor Behind?
The only other question I'd like to ask is, if two cars, is it in your view that two cars can pass on this road?
The question
we on a private road, we have got two access. We've got fire brigade access or access to the road. Can two cars pass on this road?
From what I could see, no, they can't.
Councillor Behind.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a very comprehensive report issued.
No. Have you got a question?
Yeah.
For Councillor Graham, yeah?
Yeah, no, to yourself.
No, okay, well, I haven't opened it to the floor yet. I just want to get officers to come in first, okay? I'll come to you first, don't worry, okay? James.
Yeah, just to comment on some of the points raised. I don't think the local planning the committee should be getting involved in the upkeep of the road, because I think that's a private matter in effect. I'm sure there are deeds, but that isn't a material planning consideration in terms of that's effectively a private matter. The main issues here is would the unit proposed be out of character? And I think Meg has comprehensively explained that it won't. And as it has already been explained, there is definitely a precedent here of backland development proposals. So we aren't going to win an appeal on out of character or the principle of development. You'll note I've already raised the how would this fare at appeal, because I think that's what we really need to discuss here. In terms of neighbour impact, it is a modest bungalow. I have to agree with the applicant on that point, and the distances involved. It's normally the case with a two-bedroom property, if it breaches a 15-metre distance impacting on habitable room windows, that becomes a concern, and overlooking is a 21-metre distance. So where the windows are positioned in the proposal is such that the 21-metre overlooking isn't breached window to window, and the 15 metres isn't breached. So the neighbour impact, there isn't any grounds to refuse this application. So that just leaves the highways issue. Now, we delayed determining this application because we wanted to get a view of the London Fire Brigade. So we had an initial view from our own highway engineer that they felt there was no grounds to object. The London Fire Brigade don't object. So I think we're rather stuck on highways. So from the officer perspective, there are no grounds to refuse this application. But there's one further point I wanted to say. Having reached that point, we then looked at the planning conditions, and this has got 14 conditions, and some of the conditions would actually be quite important moving forward, because we've got a withdrawal of all the permitted development rights for extensions and outbuildings, which we as officers, and I know the planning committee also value this condition as important on quite small plots to ensure the proposal doesn't get any worse in the future, in effect, in terms of neighbour impacts. We've got a construction management plan condition. So there's quite a few important conditions proposed here. So my fear would be that if members do go against officers on this, there's a potentially worst case scenario that it gets allowed to appeal, but without some of the important planning conditions that control the glazing, the permitted development, the construction management, as set out on pages 61 to 64. So I know members will feel under pressure possibly to refuse this because it's backland, but I don't think that would be the right decision in this case. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, James. That's made things a lot clearer. Councillor Barr, you ready?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have further question. I think some of the questions I had, Mr. Roger has already answered that. but I would prefer a site visit if possible on this one.
That's on the floor, so let me get. I know you'd. I know Councillor Morse, you jump on second that, no, try. But now, let me just get everybody else's views on it, and then we'll come back to that, okay?
I would second that proposal.
I know you would, but I'm not asking to do that yet. So, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You actually know my views about backland developments. I think the developer's actually been very clever here. He's positioned the bungalow or the building just so it meets the 21 metres and the 15 metres. Because of the area has many backland developments on this, if we refuse this application, this would go to appeal. And I could see it actually being kicked out and so, said, hey, Hillingdon, you failed in this occasion. It's very sad that the way it's gone, we've got some very strong conditions here. The only thing I could look at, it would be something so that you could see round that right angle at the end, that the turning in the road, that's possibly a blind turning. But other than that, there's nothing there that I could turn around and say, yes, we could overturn the officer's recommendations. Unfortunately, Councillor Morse, I don't think a site visit's going to show anything, because it's already happening in other around that area, and I don't think that would achieve much. So I will be proposing that we go with officer's recommendations. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Hang on. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Malone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I second what Councillor Morgan has said, but I'm not convinced to go against the officer's recommendations, but for the further clarity in the light of what's been said by the petitioner and the applicant and the objections raised by the councillor, I would like to propose and support a site visit, if it's okay.
Councillor Morse, I'll let him do the seconding because he made it very clear. So I'll take your second, Councillor Morse. Don't worry about that. That's fine. That's fine. I've taken your second. So you second that. Now, can you make sure that Councillor Morse second that? I'll then ask committee, those in favour of a site visit, please indicate. Those against? Okay, that's down to me then. This is the first time that's ever happened. I never thought that's happened. My question for me as a chairman is to look at this application and says, what will it give me to go and see the site? It's a beautiful site. I do know it well. I know the area well. I don't think it's going to make much difference to the outcome. That's the thing. And as a committee, we have to consider the cost upon the council. However, in this case, I think we'll allow a site visit. I don't particularly like them that much, but I think it's just, to be honest with the applicant, there's not going to be much. This will go through. There's nothing going to change for me on this at this moment, but the committee has done that, and I think that as the first committee of this new committee, I will allow a site visit. So I think I got myself out of that one just about. Right, so we're going to have a site visit. So it's deferred for a site visit. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it's still under, I think we've got time. What's the time frame on this, James, for us to have a site visit?
Well, what we would aim to do is to bring it back to the next planning committee meeting, so we'll try and organise the site visit so there's time to do that, and that we can get it back to the next committee meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Can I just make it clear about petitions and stuff on the next meeting? Are they going to be allowed to speak again or not?
No, so to clarify, they had exercised their speaking rights already, and that they won't get a second chance
So
to
that
speak.
would just go straight to committee. It would be done by the councillors, and that would be that done. Okay. That's how I move it. Okay. So thank you very much, and we'll see that was promoted in site visit. There you go. Right, let's move on swiftly. Some important matches on later, which we need to make sure that we try our best to get to it. Items 11 and 12 I'm going to take together, and we will go to Councillor Harani. Off you go.
Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, Officer Harani. I'm going mad today, I think. I'm too excited this football's coming and I'm not there. Go.
Just joking, I think. YouTube.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I do the presentation, I'll bring members' attention to the addendum sheet. The applicants have submitted a statement which will be read later on, but as part of that submission, they did include revised plans. These revisions fundamentally change the scheme, including reducing the number of bedrooms, provision of communal space, and your officers feel that they are such changes that it would require reconsultation and a reconsideration of the application. That's not to say the outcome would still be different, but your officers would need to look at these plans carefully. Given that these plans came at a very late stage of the application process, your officers consider that they should not be accepted in dealing with this application, and that members should make the decision based on the plans that are in the plan pack and as submitted. Obviously that is a decision for members to make, but that is your officer's recommendation. In relation to the application before you, it is an application for the change of use of the property, which has been substantially extended with rooms in the roof space and a two-storey extension to the rear to a 7-bedroom house in multiple occupation. There are two reasons that the application is being recommended for refusal, and the first one is the living conditions for the proposed occupiers. This is a 7-bedroom, possible 14-person occupation, and the only communal space that is available in this property is a 7 square metre kitchen area. There are no living rooms or any other communal space available within this area. Even the kitchen area in itself is a fairly limited size at 7 square metres. So it's the size of the communal space, but also the quality of the communal space. The kitchen has no windows, it is totally enclosed. The only opening it has is a door to it, therefore it has no daylight and no outlook from it. And again, that is an unsatisfactory provision of a habitable room accommodation. So for that reason, the application is recommended for refusal. The second is the impact on adjoining occupiers. As I said before, it is possible, these are all double bedrooms, so 7 rooms, they all exceed 11.5 square metres, and so potential occupancy is 14 residents. Now, it could be said that a 6 or 7 bedroom dwelling, you could get a substantially sized family within that, but it is the way that this would be used, and that's set out on pages 92 and 93. This wouldn't be used as a family dwelling, so deliveries to it would be each individual occupier would require deliveries at different times. Each would have different movements in and out of the property. They might be working different times. So the activity associated with this is not the activity that you would associate with a family dwelling. There'd be considerably more activity, and also the fact that there's no living, no communal space means that the garden is likely to be used much more intensively than it would be if it had a living room, dining room, large kitchen, and so on. And again, that would lead to noise and disturbance for residents. So for two reasons, we are recommending these two applications for refusal. If I can just go through the plans. The plans are the same on both applications. So this is the existing layout and the first floor, and there's a room in the roof as well. And then the proposed. So each bedroom has its own ensuite. The only living area, as I say, is the kitchen there in the middle of the building, and then a very small kitchen on the top floor, which is less than 4 square metres. So, and then every other room is an ensuite bedroom. And there are no external changes proposed. All of the external works, as you can see, have substantially been completed. There was a first floor front extension which was allowed on appeal. That's been done. The roof extension and the first floor rear extension were also allowed, and they've been carried out as well. So no changes to the external parts of the building, but the use is considered to be unacceptable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Right. We do have a petition on this. We haven't... Is it Mr. Gantaran?
No, sorry, Councillor. We don't have a lead petitioner listed.
Okay.
So it was sent to the first person who signed the petition.
Okay.
But I don't see anyone here, so they're not here. The agent is Mr. Kishan Ganatra. He does not appear to be here either. But I do have a statement from the applicant. So I'll read the statement from the applicant, and also a statement from Councillor Sweeting as ward councillor, and then I'll throw it over to Councillor Duncan as the other ward councillor. Just bear with me. So this is the statement from the applicant. The Council currently consider that the development would fail to provide a satisfactory residential environment for future occupants of the proposals, and that the schemes would result in an over-intensive use of the site to the detriment of neighbouring occupiers. The applicant states that the proposed internal accommodation would be finished to a high quality, and by virtue of the proposed layout and room sizes, all future occupants would benefit from a good standard of living. Nevertheless, the applicant acknowledges the concerns raised regarding the residential environment, and therefore puts forward that a very minor amendment to the proposed scheme, which would comprise 1. A new window within the southwest facing side elevation, which could be obscure glazing if necessary, and 2. The change of a proposed ground floor bedroom and ensuite to a communal living room and storage space, which would reduce the scheme to a 6-bedroom HMO with a maximum of 7 tenants. The side window now proposed would not affect living conditions at the neighbouring property number 11, as would only overlook the flank elevation and side passageway of the adjacent dwelling, and could be conditioned to be obscure glazed and fixed shut if necessary. However, the window would provide an adequate outlook and natural daylight to tenants within the kitchen of the HMO. The minor modification would also include the change of a rear bedroom to a proposed living room, which would also be of adequate size for future occupants with a good outlook that provide direct access to the rear garden, whilst the storage space would provide a useful area for tenants. A copy of the revised plans is attached for information, and that was circulated to the members prior to the meeting, which the applicant considers adequately overcome the concerns raised, and therefore makes the development acceptable and in compliance with policies DMH5, houses and multiple occupation, and DMHB11, design of new development of the Hillingdon Local Plan, Part 2. Development Management Policies 2020, and London Plan Policies D6, Housing Quality and Standards, and S12, Minimising Greenhouse Gas Emissions. Regarding potential noise and disturbance, whilst the applicant acknowledges the size of the bedrooms, she states that the maximum number of tenants within the HMO would be 7. Consequently, the HMO would not be likely to generate any more noise and disturbance than from activities from family occupation, given that the existing 5-bedroom property has the potential to accommodate up to 8 individuals. Therefore, a house of this size could be occupied by a household of adults with different activity patterns or include several children of various ages, and as such, the movement patterns of a large family would not be vastly different from the residents within a proposed HMO. Paragraphs 54 and 55 of the National Planning Policy Framework states that the local planning authorities should consider whether otherwise unacceptable development could be made acceptable through the use of conditions, and that conditions should only be imposed where they are necessary, relevant to planning and to the development of the permitted, and be enforceable. Therefore, a condition restricting a number of occupants to 7 would be entirely enforceable. Moreover, the HMO would be licensed, which would also include restricting the number of tenants, and in addition, the applicant would be a responsible landlady who will employ the service of a managing agent to ensure that the property is maintained to a high standard, not exceeding the permitted maximum number of tenants. In summary, the proposed scheme would not result in an over-intensive use of the site, and therefore would be a neighbourly form of development that would not materially harm the living conditions of neighbouring occupants. Thus, the proposal would not conflict with the aims of policy DMH5, houses in multiple occupation, of the Hillingdon Local Plan Part 2, development management policies, and London Plan 2021 policy D14, noise. Further to the above information, the applicant acknowledges the representations put forward by neighbouring occupiers, however asserts that no additional valid reasons have been put forward to demonstrate that the proposal would not comply with planning policy. That concludes the statement from the applicant and agent, and this is a statement from Councillor Sweeting, Ward Councillor. I ask that the following written comments on both the above applications be considered at the Minor Applications Planning Committee of the 22nd of June 2021, as I am not able to attend the meeting in person as Ward Councillor. I support fully the officer recommendations that both applications be refused. The reasons are very well explained in the detailed report, namely that the proposal would fail to provide an adequate and satisfactory residential environment for the future occupants of the proposed HMO. This is highlighted by the complete lack of adequate communal areas, the totally inadequate kitchen space, and the fact that a very small kitchen would have no natural light with the reliance on artificial lighting. Then there is the impact which an HMO having a capacity of 14 adults would have on the immediate neighbours. With no adequate communal areas, it would be necessary for the occupants to use the outside space for meeting and dining and recreation, with the consequent noise and disturbance this would create. As the report states, the proposal would result in an over-intensive use of the site to the detriment of the residential amenities of adjoining occupiers. The officer's report suggests that the parking in the road would not be impacted by the potential HMO, having capacity 14 adults, due to the fact that a Section 106 agreement would prohibit the occupiers being able to apply for residential parking permits. However, this is unlikely to be easily enforceable, as we have had instances in this road where permits have been misused and cars parked overnight without permits. Both planning applications have been subject of a number of letters of objection, including a petition of residents, so I ask that the committee concurs with the officer recommendation for refusal for both applications, as well as the wishes of those residents who submitted letters of objection and signed the petition against the applications. Thank you to the committee for considering my comments.
Thank you, Neil. Councillor Duncan. It's nice to hear a real voice.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman and committee members, my fellow ward councillor, Councillor Jan Sweeting, has sent in written comments on the applications on 9 Ferris Avenue in some detail, and I will not restate the points she makes, but simply say that both I and Councillor Mathers, the third councillor for West Drayton, support all the points made, and I would ask you to consider them, please. We very much appreciate the officer's comprehensive report and recommendations for refusal, which we think address the main objections to this development. Ferris Avenue is a long cul-de-sac road off the main road running through West Drayton, and is therefore subject to shoppers parking and some unauthorised overnight parking, although it is a controlled parking zone. There are pressures on parking, therefore, despite the CPZ. I see that parking cannot be a reason for refusal, but I still think a 7-bedroom HMO will pose parking difficulties for potential occupiers as well as existing residents. The road is one of family housing and does not have commercial or intensive occupation uses such as that proposed with this HMO. To have an HMO capable of housing 14 people is so out of character with the quiet family housing in the rest of the road that I am not surprised that all the residents we have heard from about this proposal were very much opposed to it. I see that the use is not regarded as being out of character with the area or the road, but in my view it is. I would ask you as a committee to consider whether a use as intensive as this with all the noise, disturbance and activities of 14 people potentially, is in character or not? If such an HMO suddenly appeared next door to you, would you regard it as being in character with your road, if you live in one of the many quiet roads of family housing in our borough? The government is relaxing many planning restrictions, but it has placed HMOs in a sui generis use class of its own and not in a residential use class. This is significant in itself, I think. I hope these applications will be refused. The applicant has tried to squeeze every bit of accommodation out of this building that will make money, while cutting corners on communal space and facilities for the people who will live there. It represents an undesirable form of development and not one we wish to encourage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I have many hands going up. Has anybody got a question for Councillor Duncan before I go to committee? No? Okay, fine. So I've got Councillor Biari first, and then Councillor Brightman, Councillor Morgan, and Councillor Morse. Do you want a full house?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I welcome the report and also comments by my colleagues, both Councillors Duncan and Councillor Sweetie, and so I recommend the refusals. I propose that.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't want to go over everything again. We've heard enough of it. I second the refusal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering how that building got approval in the first place. It's totally out of character with the whole street scene. But yeah, it's a slam dunk. It's, I'm not going to say any more.
Councillor Morse.
I can't add too much, but all I'm going to say is I agree with the officers' methodology. They're saying that it's going to occupy 14 and raising the standard on that. I think that was a completely correct approach. Obviously, I don't like this proposal at all.
That was allowed at appeal. So, to answer that question, which I've been kindly said in my ear, I'm not that brilliant that I didn't know every application that comes through. So, we've got a proposal and a seconder. I'll go straight to the floor for items 11 and 12. So I'll take both proposals and seconders.
You might need to do one at a time.
Okay, fine, we'll do it one at a time, but I'm going to take the same one. Okay, I've proposed and seconded. All those in favour with officer recommendation for refusal on part 11? That's unanimous. God, I can't speak today. I really am struggling. Councillor, and then item 12 with the same proposal and seconder. Those in favour with officer recommendation for refusal? That's unanimous as well. See, I could actually say the word. That's very good. Okay, so that's that done. Now, the last one is item 13. Yep. Meg.
Thank you, Chairman. Members will know this site. This application was deferred on the 3rd of March for a site visit, and members visited the site very recently. If I can draw, the application is for the replacement of what were 4 garages on the site with 4 shipping containers. If I can draw members' attention to the planning history comments, they'll note that an application for a residential bungalow on the site was refused permission in 2016 for 4 reasons. One was the impact on 2 and 3 Column Mill Road for parking, and there was the residential accommodation in terms of its outlook and light and cramped form of development. Out of those 4 reasons, only one was upheld, and that was the impact on the properties at 2 and 3 Column Mill Road. So the inspector considered the parking to be acceptable and also considered that infilling the site or developing the site in principle was acceptable. In terms of the impact on adjoining occupiers, there are two things. One, the siting of the buildings, in inverted commas, has been changed so that it is now sited as far as it can be from the back of 2 and 3 Column Mill Road. And secondly, the previous application was 4 metres high, and this is 2.7 metres maximum. So because of those two factors, your officers consider that the application wouldn't have any impact on the back of 2 and 3 Column Mill Road. And I think that's sort of supported by the fact that in this particular case we don't have any objections, whereas objections were raised by those properties to the previous application. So it is recommended for refusal. Members did see the site and the impact that the containers have visually, and there is a number of conditions. If I can draw members' attention to the addendum sheet. Oh, sorry, recommended for approval. Previously recommended for refusal. So if I can draw members' attention to the addendum sheet, there is an additional condition recommended which states that there should be no vehicular access onto the access road serving 4 and 4A Column Mill Road to the rear of this site. Members saw at the site visit that there was a gate between that access road and this site, and it's recommended that that gate is only used for emergency purposes only. So with that condition, additional condition, the application is recommended for approval. If I can just again show the photos and plans. These are the existing, because the application is it is retrospective for the retention, and the elevations, and these are the containers. Thank you, Chairman.
Very much. Right.
Chairman, we don't have a...
I know you don't have a thing. You have a statement from Councillor Sweet, and then we've got Councillor Duncan who'd like to add something to it. This will be interesting.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a statement received from Councillor Sweeting, Ward Councillor for West Drayton. I ask that the following written comments as Ward Councillor for West Drayton on the above application be considered at the Minor Applications Planning Committee on 22nd of June 2021, as I'm not able to attend the meeting in person. Although the officer's recommendation is that their application be approved, there are some serious issues which I would like to bring to the notice of the committee before any decision is made. Firstly, although conditions have been placed on the use of these 4 shipping containers so that it would appear that their sole use will be as office space, it is very possible that the use may change in future to one where they become used as living spaces. The recent relaxed planning rules may indeed allow this to happen in future, so that the council may be giving approval to future beds in sheds. Secondly, there have been a number of concerns expressed by near neighbours which have been included in the officer's report. These include the area's stated use as an overflow car park for the cafe, that the containers are not in keeping with the surrounding area, and that the use of the offices will not mean that even cars in this area will mean even more cars in this already very heavily congested area. In support of these comments from residents, I would like to bring the committee's attention to the acute parking problems which are a daily occurrence in Column Mill Road, adjacent to the cafe, and at the entrance to which to where the 4 corners containers are situated. There are only very few car parking spaces at the cafe, made even fewer by the recent alteration of car park space into an outside seating area, and so some customers park their cars over the adjacent pavements, which are then blocked so that pedestrians cannot access. The parking problems can be verified by the large number of complaints which the council has received from residents over the issue, and the number of members' inquiries submitted on the problem since the opening of the cafe. The parking problems are made worse, especially each Friday, when worshippers attend Friday prayers at the mosque close by. It should also be noted that Column Mill Road is the only entrance to the whole of the Garden City estate, so any additional cars being parked in the vicinity to serve the new offices will merely add to the overall car congestion. Finally, I would suggest that to approve the use of shipping containers as offices in a residential area would set an unfortunate precedent. I ask, therefore, that the committee considers the points I have raised before making their decision on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, I hope you would think of a different view of that, but there we go. We'll wait and see.
Thank you, Chairman. Both Councillor Mathers and I support Councillor Sweeting's comments and hope you'll consider those. But I wanted to make one or two other small points. The site is a small piece of land that was at one time used for parking and was associated with a small car dealer's, now a cafe, on the opposite side of Colin Mill Road, on the corner with Station Road, which is the main road through West Drayton Shopping Centre. The cafe has some connection with this development, I am told, although I do not know if they own it or not. Next door to this site are residential properties and a local mosque. The cafe has recently converted part of its car park to a seating area to be more COVID compliant. The mosque is well attended with cars parked all down the road on occasions. Almost every day residents send us photographs of vehicles parked outside the cafe on the road and ask for double yellow lines to be put in place and extended up the road. I say this because the inspector's comments on the planning appeal on the bungalow proposal that was refused may have been true then, but are certainly not true now. There will definitely be parking and traffic safety implications with this development, as there have been ever since the containers were placed there. Traffic turning into the road will meet head-on cars trying to exit the estate and manoeuvre around the parked cars on the road. It is a dangerous situation for vehicles and pedestrians now and has not been accurately reported here, I'm afraid. The site is close to the Garden City area of special local character. At present, a group of residents are working to produce a leaflet similar to those in other ACLCs in order to identify and try to strengthen the features that make this an area of special local character. Shipping containers do not appear as one of the forms of development we either have or wish to have. It is totally out of character with all other development in the area. If we allow shipping containers for such use outside commercial or industrial areas, it will not be long before we have them at the bottom of people's gardens. Although there is a condition restricting this to office use, this condition could well be appealed and residential use allowed. It is part of the government's relaxation of certain planning restrictions and is in an area of residential use. However, if this did happen, the accommodation would not comply with our standards for distance, overlooking and privacy at 12 metres from the adjoining housing. Indeed, I am surprised that the recommendation is for approval when it is offices so close to housing as noise disturbance and light pollution could all affect adjoining properties to some degree. I hope committee will refuse this application as it is not designed to the highest standards as required by planning policies or even maintaining a minimum distance from residential buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. As you know, I won't agree with that one, but there we go. We'll see what the rest of the committee. I'm going to get Officer in. I'm going to let James in first, and then and you had a cup of coffee there. She's going to be really annoyed that you had a cup of coffee at that.
I will be quick. So condition 4 restricts it solely to office use, so that is covered. Condition 2 controls the hours of use. And the site isn't in an area of special local character. I think in all other respects it is as members saw on site, and I'd reiterate what I said on site, that I don't think there's any reasons to refuse this proposal. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Morse, would you like to ask a question of Councillor Duncan?
Yes.
Or are you going to make a statement about the...
No, I'm not making any statements, I'm asking a question.
Okay, a question. He had a cup of coffee at that opposition.
If that's all right, Chair. My question is, you make this point about this area was used for car parking, and at the moment we are going to propose a change of use from car parking, so somebody's been using car parking there. So how did the cafe have access to as a parking area? I'm just curious about this.
Originally, the cafe was a small local car dealer's, and they had a small car showroom. The area next door was also used for display of cars, And this was a piece of land that you've accessed and seen where they kept other cars, I am told. And certainly there were cars kept there and there was parking there. When the cafe owners bought the car sales showroom, I think this piece of land came with it because certainly it was used at one time by the cafe owners, or they came to an arrangement with the local person who owned it. I don't know the ownership details, only what I've been told, and I haven't checked that. So while it was used for parking, and while all of the car parking area for the cafe was in use, things functioned reasonably well. But now half the car park of the cafe, which if you had your site visit recently, you will have seen there's just a few spaces at the front, and the back has been arranged with seating area to be COVID compliant so that people can, eat and drink outside. That area has been taken away, and also once the shipping containers were put in, we noticed much more parking. So it's almost daily, and this can be checked through members' inquiries. People send us photographs, and how they've had to dodge around parked cars. And so close to the main road junction, you get cars turning left, heading north, turning left, coming round and coming to a screeching halt with people. It's a very narrow junction, which you will have seen for yourself. The road isn't wide at that point, and the pavements are narrow. And there have been several sort of incidents that have alarmed people. So that's why I say I think the inspector's comments at the time of the bungalow appeal was probably more accurate. Now I think it's a bit different. Thank you.
Well, all I'll say to you is that traffic wardens are really hot around there because I nearly got a ticket and I had to move thanks to James. He told me that the traffic warden, so I had to park in the car park those two spaces that were there. They do own both. The applicant does own both. But on that note, we will open it to the floor. I have Councillor Morgan and Councillor Brightman and Councillor Olani. You wanted to ask a question, Councillor Olani, didn't you? No, okay, fine. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I did do a site visit, and for once I went on the motorbike and not the car.
Such a rocket.
Yeah. To me, I can't see... we can't take parking as a planning issue in the sense of parking on the highway. Yeah, that's a highways matter, and perhaps the councillors can arrange to have cameras set up so that you can get ANPRs and work that way. There are conditions on there to say that for operating hours between 8 and 6 Monday to Friday and 10 till 4 on Saturdays. So can we have that strengthened to say never Sundays, bank holidays, and just to really tighten that up? And we've also got the comment in the condition on here that it cannot change its use. So with that, from what I've seen, I'm quite happy to propose we go with officers' recommendations and accept the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I might have missed it in here, but I thought there was going to be something about the lack of toilet facilities in there, because it's okay for as long as that unit is used by the same owners as the CAF and people dash across the road to go, that's workable. But there needs to be something to prevent that being sold off to somebody new and then there'd be inadequate toilet facilities. There's nothing seems to be in the conditions there.
I'll have a look at that. Let me get everything out first. I've got you, Councillor Morse, don't worry. Councillor Malani.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Upon the visit, we got that clarity we didn't have last time. In terms of the size and design of the containers, I'm okay with that. not to be detrimental to the character of the area. There are no toilets inside. We were told that they use toilet in the cafe, right? So there's no problem of the toilets having inside. The next point is one of the gentlemen was talking to us on the site visit that we use these containers for office work purely. 3 members of staff work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It didn't mention 8 to 6 or Saturdays 10 to 4. So I don't know whether it's okay to have a condition on just to use from Monday to Friday 9 to 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just remember.
I had some difficulty in evaluating this because I could see officers' concept that it does provide some employment. And what do you do with this location? But looking back on it, I'm beginning to take the view that because you're near a high street, there's a lot of parking nearby, and we're taking away this, it is actually a car park at present. I'm not totally happy with the fact that we're turning this into office accommodation. I appreciate, I'm just giving you my view before we have a vote, and I have to explain why I'm voting against, so I thought I ought to do it if I have to. I'm of the view that we should consider turning this down on the basis I don't think this is actually an appropriate development in this location, particularly with the structure we're putting there. I don't actually see this as a long-term, a pleasant object to put in this location. I think the whole area could get some sort of new idea coming. I appreciate we have to take into account the inspector's views, but I don't actually think this is an improvement. I know it's a lower in height, I accept that, but I'm not of the view that this is an appropriate accommodation, particularly where you've got no toilets there. The people who are actually working there have to walk across the road, so I'm not of the view this is an appropriate development. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, that's an opinion. I've got a couple of questions before we go. James, you want to come in first? I'll let you come in and answer those.
I can answer the toilet question.
Go on to the toilet question. Go on.
Yeah, we don't have any planning policies that require toilets on private premises, so we can't insist new shops or businesses have toilets. There is actually a policy in the new London plan on public toilets that relates to new civic buildings and certain large-scale transport hubs and basically buildings that are not this proposal. If we were trying to refuse or do conditions, we'd have to tie it to a policy, and there isn't a policy.
In my view, I think containers are being used now right across London. There's a new build on the A40 that's used them. I think in central London they've used them as a way of structuring new housing. It's quite a new initiative. I have 2 things that I really need tightened up before I go to the vote. On the addendum, that back gate, I really need that tightened up a bit more just as a back gate, James, because I feel that if it is not a secured gate, that it's a one opening gate for fire to leave the site for a fire, then it will be used, and that could cause problems. And it was falling down as well, so it really does need sort of sorting out. And the other thing is that we did say that there was only 2 parking spaces on site. I just want those confirmed as well. And then, did you second it, Councillor Brightman?
We haven't had a mover.
We have. I've had a mover. I've had Councillor Morgan moved it, didn't you? Yeah.
Oh, right.
Okay, fine. I'll wait for a second. Yeah, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I did ask about the operating hours.
Yeah, exactly.
If those could be changed.
And so did.
Yeah. If you're happy to delegate to me, I can tighten the wording of condition 2, so bank, public holidays, tighten the wording, and also I'm sure we can tighten the wording, the condition in the addendum, would members wish it to be. At the moment it refers to vehicular access. I assume we wouldn't want pedestrian or vehicular access, that it's strictly only emergency vehicles. Would that be the intention? But I'm sure we can strengthen it if members are happy to delegate to me.
Okay, so I've got a proposal. Can I have a second? Councillor Raleigh.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to second.
Fine. So I'll go to the vote. I have a proposal and second. Those in favour of the officer's recommendations with the additional tightening condition and giving James the extra delegated powers with the approval of this? Those in favour? That's 4 of you. Those against? 2. Okay, fine. Thank you. So that is passed as an approval. All I do is wish you all a good evening and a safe trip home, and come on England. That's all I'll say. I've got
Thank you very much indeed.